Welcome back to the Overtly Critical Film Show. I'm Ryan.
And I'm Corwin.
And this week we talked about
Blade Runner, the final cut from 2007.
Directed by Ridley Scott.
Starring Harrison Ford and Rutger Hauer.
And Daryl Hannah, which I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either.
And like we were talking about, Ridley Scott is, I guess, a common theme on the channel now.
And I don't think that's a bad thing.
Deckard is forced by the police boss to continue his old job as a replicant hunter. His assignment, eliminate the 4 escaped replicants from the colonies who have returned to Earth. Before starting the job, Deckard goes to the Tyrell Corporation when he meets Rachel, a young replicant girl he falls in love with. So the story. I feel like I don't have as much to say on this front, so I guess I'll go first. As the movie was kind of developing, I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, let's see, this guy has to go back to his old job of killing these replicants. And I was like, wouldn't it be funny? And I just jotted down, if he falls in love with the traitor irony kind of story. And that's exactly what happened. Because in the next scene, he goes to the Tyrell Corporation and he meets Rachel. That was just like a prediction. There's a couple things. So obviously, it's a sci-fi story.
Very noir as well.
But yeah, also very noir, which is kind of going to get into, it's a really good genre blend, because there's a lot of things, oh, that's really sci-fi, and then there's a lot of things like, that's really noir.
This is like, the gold standard for cyberpunk. It basically created the genre for any fans of that.
So obviously it's a futuristic movie. It takes place in 2019, which is kind of funny.
Well, the book was written in 1968, I believe, and this came out in 1982. But, I always love it where it's like, and this is the crazy year 2001.
So there is a thing that I find really interesting, and basically all sci-fi movies kind of fall into the trap where they try, it's like predictions of the future that end up being totally wrong. So it's almost like you can view it as like a parallel timeline. And one of the things that we both kind of talked about was the fact that some of these things are like really, really inaccurate. Some of them are really futuristic, and then they're still like smoking cigarettes. Which is, I guess you could consider that part of the noir thing, because that's definitely like a noir kind of trait that characters have.
I think the term is sometimes called retrofuturism. Alien falls into that a little bit, where you get a very future view of things. It's kind of a bullshit term because it really only applies to older media or people recreating the style of older media. But where you in Blade Runner where you have like flying cars, but you also have like old film photos still.
Sometimes you can't always foresee technology, and one of the funnier moments is when he's zooming into that picture and he wants to get something better, and then he just like prints it. Like nobody would ever want a physical copy of these things anymore.
With all of the insane machine learning stuff that we've got, I wouldn't put it off that in 50, 60 years that's a thing you can do.
Yeah, it's like it's half right, because like in that scene specifically, it kind of dabbles into like VR a little bit, like a picture you can just go into the space of that whole picture, that whole room, and then he's like, oh, great, I'm gonna get a Polaroid now. Just something for pattern that I noticed, that the cop guy, he always made like these little like origami kind of things, and every time you saw that in the movie, you're like, oh, it's that cop guy. So that's just a repetition thing in the script. And another thing, this kind of plays into audio, but it does have to do with like story. There's a couple times where like you hear like the same heartbeat noise when the replicants are like dying or in like a scary situation. I believe the first time you heard it was in the beginning when the first guy was being interviewed, and then the first one that he killed, who was that? I think, was that the first one he killed? Yes.
Zora.
Yes.
Yeah.
And when she died, you heard
Oft.
Yes, it was that same like heartbeat noise. So the cop guy, origami, all these things are just repetitive things that lets you know, oh, it's that character. So
to me, this movie really, it takes its time, and it really lets it will like sit on shots and really let you think about the story. And it's not just what a lot of modern movies do, where it's like next scene to next scene to next scene, move the story along. And I kind of appreciate that because this is such an atmospheric film, with like just the soundtrack and the set design and the lighting, that it's great to be able to take that in and just think.
I will say this, kind of building off of that as kind of a general point, the pace. I read a little bit about the critics' response to the movie originally, and a lot of people criticize the pace of the movie being slow. The movie definitely takes its time, like you said.
It does. It's not even quite 2 hours, but it feels like 2.5.
Yeah, and one thing that I noticed too, when we're getting into the movie a little bit, I can't remember exactly what point, but it feels like they cut to the replicants, and then when they cut back to Deckard, I feel like it's not like they're cutting back and forth to those plots quickly. Like they take their time with each of them. So you're with Harrison Ford for like 20 minutes, and you're like, oh yeah, I totally forgot about the whole plot of like the replicants like trying to track down the creator guy. It's almost like they take so much time that and that can be a good or bad thing. I mean, it can really get you into it, but at the same time I was like, oh yeah, I totally forgot these guys were trying to hunt somebody down at Tyrell. Like,
for me, what's so intriguing about this movie is thematically the concepts that the concepts this movie is about like humanity and morality are so very interesting. I think the key theme of this movie is what does it mean to be human? Because you get replicant characters, think it's very hard to tell the difference, and the whole idea of memories, a very big not really motif, but I guess theme. Another big theme in the movie are memories, the persistence of memory and the accuracy and the reliability or unreliability of memories. Right. With Rachel's character, but also as the big question is maybe Deckard's character, because the big question in this movie is that they never really specifically state, but fans of the movie have been debating this for years, and even the sequel doesn't give you a concrete answer. Is Deckard a replicant? And building off of that, I want to know what your thoughts are.
I'm going to say I don't think it matters.
That's fair.
Only because, and I guess this is something that I pulled from the story. I believe it was the CEO guy of Tyrell. Like, I believe it was him that said the line, like, everybody dies. Like, when they were complaining about, like... So at some point in the movie, I can't remember when it was, but at some point when the replicants were complaining that they weren't living long enough, someone's like, well, everybody dies. So that kind of brings up the point, like, they're like, oh, well, it's unfair because we have an expiration date. So does everybody.
You hit Gaff's line of, it's a pity she won't live, but then again, who does?
Okay, that's probably it. I'm just remembering things incorrectly.
Now, for me, the answer is yes, Deckard is a replicant. And here's why. You remember that unicorn scene? That you were watching and you were like, that's bullshit. What is that?
Oh my God.
And I agree. It seems very strange.
I think I know what you're going to say.
But what makes it is, at the end of the movie, Deckard picks up, Gaff has been leaving around these little origami things. One of them is like a little origami unicorn. And to me, what that signifies is that Gaff, who is this very kind of mysterious character who we don't know much about him, and it's implied that he knows more than he's letting on. Like maybe he's figured it all out already, and he just kind of is watching it unfold. To me, that it just implies that Deckard's memories are fake.
So the unicorn is an implanted memory.
Exactly. I think that's exactly what it is.
The movie also does bring up another interesting question about Rachel. It's like, because Rachel
also has implanted memories of Tyrell's niece.
Thinks she's human, and that brings up an interesting point. Like, how are we to know if any of us have fake memories?
Yeah.
We experience them, but how do we know we experience them? You know what I mean? It's like the same thing. Like, you can't prove that the universe wasn't created last Thursday, kind of thing. It's a little bullshit, but it's a question.
If you can't prove it, you can't you could prove it. You're probably not going to, but you can't disprove it, really, because we view our world through memories. That's all we have.
It's just a question. What did you think of the dove?
Well, doves symbolize like peace and life. Like Noah's Ark, the dove of peace brings back an olive branch. Roy holds the dove in that final sequence, and that whole sequence is to me about Roy choosing humanity. Like, he drives like he's very human and very animalistic in that scene. The actual I believe the track and the soundtrack is called "Wounded Animals Crying in Pain" or something. He drives like a nail through his hand to for the adrenaline, so he doesn't die. He's like, not yet. And he has his back turned to Rick as he's hanging, and in his final moment, what it means to me is he is choosing compassion, which is what the movie is basically stating. That's what it means to be human, compassion for other people. He runs across and jumps in this epic show of human achievement. he's like, he's like an Adonis. He's not really wearing anything. He's very muscular, and he helps Rick up. He's very powerful. It's interesting because it's such a great show of his power, but he's doing it for compassion. When like for the rest of this part of the movie and for the entire movie, he's been very like he's been the antagonist.
Yeah.
And then the dove is set free. It's like him ascending to heaven.
Right.
That's
Well,
how I read
yeah,
that
I was thinking
moment.
the explicit meaning is the dove is like a heaven thing. I wasn't sure if that had anything else.
I don't think it's that deep.
Okay, the visual design of the movie. This is where I had the most notes. This is where everybody probably would have the most to say about it. I guess I kind of repeating myself here, but like a lot of things, it was one of the cooler sci-fi world designs I've ever seen because there's enough of that like noir grit to it, but there's like some future technology sprinkled in. And one of my favorite moments or favorite parts of it is like kind of like the underground little like Asian markets that they have like on the streets and stuff, because it's like everybody's still walking around in their normal clothes and they got these umbrellas, but some of them look like lightsabers.
I think the number one thing I love about the design of this movie, and you said it perfectly, noir grit, the fact that you have like flying cars and you've got towering buildings and you have replicants where you can basically regrow humans, but then you have old framed photos and a piano, and you have like animals that are there but they're fake. Especially in the time of 1982 when the movie came out, it grounds us in this setting and feels like this isn't too far from our world.
Enjoy Coke.
Yeah, some of I think you said it was the best product placement in any film, and it's like the most overt product placement in a film ever.
Because it actually is product placement with a purpose, because it's a good way to kind of let you know, like, this is the same world, like, this is LA. You drink Coca-Cola, they still do. It's just a good way to like give you this kind of future world, but keep some familiarity.
But also shows you like the corporate power over this world. That's one thing with the visuals. The symbolism in this movie is very, very cool to me. I love like how like the Tyrell building looks like an ancient ziggurat. It's like a temple.
Yes.
And Tyrell's at the top, and he just feels like a god. I mean, literally in the scene, on the soundtrack, I think it's called "The Prodigal Son Kills a God" or something, where Roy Batty goes and he kills Tyrell, which is my second favorite scene in the movie.
Yeah.
And it's just so. It's a great contrast of the cleanness of his place. He's playing chess. It's all this orange, soft light, and then you get the muddy streets of L.A. or the cold room of like the eyeball maker's lab, or the filth in the theater. Especially just comparing how rich and well off Tyrell is as a CEO, and how his friend J.M. Sebastian, I think is his name. J.F. Sebastian just lives in squalor, basically, but kind of contributes as much to the replicants as Tyrell does.
This is one thing that maybe you have an answer for, but I was looking. So the two things that I noticed most in the movie are blue and orange, and I don't think there's a rhyme and reason to it. You might disagree with me. At first, I was like, okay, it looks like the blue stuff was like with Deckard. I was like, okay, and then he goes to Tyrell, and then you have like that scene where that's the sun. It's like lighting the whole room orange, and I was like, okay, well then maybe like the replicants, that'll be like an orange theme. But then when they go find the eyeball guy, that's blue. And then there's some scenes, I think it might have been when Deckard went into the bar, that it's orange. And I was like, is there really a rhyme or reason to it? I don't really think there is, other than it looks cool.
This movie is not as tied to color theory as something like Vertigo, where like green is Madeline's color, red is what's Gavin's color. But to me, orange tends to represent Tyrell. Like that first scene where he's giving the void comp test to Rachel is very orange. When Tyrell dies, it's very orange. Yep. And blue seems to be more associated with I don't think really Rick, but I associate that more with Roy, honestly. I don't have a straight answer to that. I do think some of it is just it looks cool. It's complementary colors, so it's very eye-catching. But I do think you could easily analyze the color theory of Blade Runner. I'm sure people have.
Yeah, I think the most important thing about the colors, though, is a lot of it is just motivated kind of diegetic lighting. It's like, oh, the big neons.
I love the term diegetic lighting. No one uses it, but I
know.
love it.
It just makes sense to me. The neon signs, the moving cars and lights and stuff on their faces, the sun, all that stuff. So
a
that,
lot of hard lighting, too.
Right.
It's there is no,
low-key stuff.
They're not trying to make it all look pretty. I mean, it does look pretty, but they're not trying to make it all look very clear. They're trying to make you feel like this is real.
Another really, really noir thing is like blinds, which is funny because the lighting class. But blinds, the police station scene, like when he walks in, I'm like, this is like the most noir setting I've ever seen. And then I believe is it Deckard's apartment also has some kind of similar lighting to that too.
Does.
I noted the wardrobe of everyone in the movie, because I didn't necessarily notice a particular style, and I think that's the point. I can look at some of that stuff and be like, oh, some of these people are dressed like really old-fashioned, and some like way earlier than 1980s, and then some of it, so a lot of it I was like, I think they just kind of tried to blend everything together and hope that the future would be something like that. Because Harrison Ford, what does he wear in the movie? It's like a fur coat or it's like a leather or something.
He wears this sort of big leather jacket,
which is very noir too. If he had the hat, it would be even more. But still,
the second to last replicant to die, the one who's like Roy's sort of girlfriend. I love her design. Because it really comes off as like she's very like a performer, and just the way she kind of manipulates JF Sebastian. Another great one is Gaff. Just he's very intriguing, and he's the most like I don't get him. He's the part of the movie I get the least, but just he wears a lot of interesting colors and patterns, and he just like your eye is brought to him whenever he's in a scene.
It's like the haircut. When I saw it, I was like, that's not even like an 80s thing. That's just weird. And I was like, maybe that's like an anime kind of thing.
I never thought about that.
That's just something I thought of. I can talk a little bit more for Metropolis. I'm not going to spoil anything. But the scene when Deckard's arrested in the beginning of the movie, and he's being taken in that ship, and whatever building that ship parks in looks exactly like what they call the Tower of Babel in Metropolis. It's the main building of the city where the character Fredersen owns his factory in Metropolis. It literally looks the exact same. And when you watch that, you'll find that. Another interesting thing, maybe you'll be able to comment on this, is I think a lot of this is like it's pretty like Hong Kong looking. And a weird thing for me to think of, the first thing I thought of was like, that looks like Godzilla vs. Kong.
Yeah, I can see that with the color.
And the Asian, it's just like an Asian feel.
Asian is the most prevalent ethnicity worldwide. There are more Asian people than anyone else. And what they're kind of implying in this movie is that, there's more of them and more have emigrated. It's just a really great sort of bit of flavor to the world. It's one of those things that just makes this world feel different.
Even though Star Wars came before it, Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, that entire city that they fly around in that city looks exactly like this. So
that's kind of cool. I wonder, it makes you think about how much did like Star Wars inspire the design of Blade Runner, and how much did that go to inspire Star Wars? That is very interesting to think about.
Right. Or like the prequels inspired Blade Runner inspired the prequels to Star Wars. That's kind of what I was thinking. Because this came out, Jedi didn't come out till the year after, but. Okay, so on to the audio of the movie. I never write a lot for audio, but this is technically the most I've written.
It's a phenomenal soundtrack.
I know I'm going to let you riff a little bit on the score soundtrack, because I know you definitely have a lot to say about it. I'll talk about two things. I already talked about the the heartbeat noise that you hear when the replicant a couple of times. It's kind of an audio thing that associates you with the replicants. It's just an interesting detail. One thing that I noticed though, I can't remember what other movie did this that we watched. I'm trying to think. I think it was Mulholland Drive. Room tone. A lot of the rooms in the movie have a weird kind of like weird humming sounds that are like futuristic room tone, and it's a really good way when you don't need music to set a tone for the scene. I can think of scenes like even I think Tyrell's. I think when he tested Rachel, I think there was some of that. But just throughout the movie, when there's not music, there is always some kind of weird like unsettling room tone. The beginning of the movie when that first guy, I can't remember his name. He's being tested. Leon's being tested. I believe it's there too. It's just a good detail.
They don't like try and do just like some orchestral stuff. They want a very synth heavy soundtrack, and it's iconic, and it really sets like, you know, it that added so much. You were talking about like synthwave as that whole aesthetic we have now. You can kind of trace it back to this movie. I also
although
love
synthwave definitely over exaggerated what this movie did, but
Tears in Rain, the climactic moment where Roy he's like he accepts that he's about to die, and a little into this. I'll wait off on that because that's my favorite moment. Little spoiler here when we get to that point, but that's such a gorgeous piece of music. It's just, I said it again. I'm gonna say it again. It just adds so much to the aesthetic and the themes and the atmosphere of this film.
Now it's time for Super 8 to drop some cool facts on us.
There he is, the boy, the star of the show, Super 8.
And I'm going to try my hardest to potentially do something cool with Super 8 in an upcoming episode, but that's coming later. So, take it away.
This is Sir Ridley Scott's favorite movie of his own. The final cut, released in 2007, is his favorite version of this movie. Some computer displays within the vehicles were used on the Nostromo and the lifeboat in Alien. Some sounds from that movie can also be heard. A female gymnast was hired as a stunt double for Daryl Hannah in the scene where Pris attacks Rick Deckard. But director Sir Ridley Scott rehearsed the scene so many times that when they were ready to shoot the scene, she was too exhausted to do anything. The scene was filmed with a male gymnast that they had been able to track down during the lunch break, at around 27 minutes into the movie. Outside of the iScientist lab, on the left-hand side of the door, is some graffiti in Japanese/Chinese characters that reads, quote, "Chinese good, Americans bad." When author William Gibson went to see this movie, he was preparing to begin his first novel, The Neuromancer. However, 20 minutes into the movie, he got up and walked out of the theater because he was shocked by the similarities between this movie and his as yet unwritten novel. William Sanderson researched his character by looking into real-life cases of progeria, the advanced aging disease from which J.F. Sebastian suffers. Sir Ridley Scott got the inspiration for the opening futurescape shots of Los Angeles, California from the industrial landscape of Teesside, England, while driving to his hometown of Stockton-on-Tees. The two skylines look very similar.
Thank you, Super 8, for those wonderful facts. We're going to move on to our favorite moment now.
I love the shit out of the final Tears in Rain scene. The music's gorgeous, the way it's shot, the lighting, and like the writing as well. A lot of ing. the monologue he gives, Roy Batty. I've seen things you people wouldn't believe. Just the whole idea of just how fleeting life is. Because on one hand, yeah, his life was really short, but just that whole idea of how long are our own lives. And, you know, we are all going to die. We are all mortal. Even Tyrell is mortal, even though he's like a god. I just love the one shot where he's looking at Deckard talking to him, and it's very blue, which to me is the color of humanity in this movie. But you get the orange of like the sign, and that's like corporate in the background. I like how they cut between Deckard's face and his face to like show they're kind of the same.
I'm gonna go a little boring with my pick, but I really like the opening. I think the opening couple shots of the movie were
That's not boring at all.
Really impressive, and I know that the point of the story isn't look at our gorgeous world. The point of it is, you know, Deckard and all and the replicants and all that. I really wish they did that a lot more, because I thought the opening shots and there's like fire everywhere, and there's like you see how it's not like overly bright. I just really like the portrayal of the future in the movie, because it's still like a dark city, but there's a lot of lights. The structures are great. And I thought just
Get the big Tyrell building as we slowly get closer to it dominates the landscape.
The effects on that are really good. Like I didn't look at this for a second and go, oh, that's a miniature. I thought it looked really good.
I also like the intercutting between that and like the shot of the eye. I just think that's really interesting.
Which is also something that happens in Metropolis to a different degree, but there is something to do with eyes in Metropolis too, which is interesting. I thought that was really cool. Just the opening kind of really like sets the scene.
Music is gorgeous as well.
Yeah, the music in that scene is great. It's a good way to bring you into the world. As soon as that was happening, and we kind of zoom into that Tyrell building, I was like, yeah, I'm into it. Which sometimes it takes a lot for me to get into something, so I really like that. I know what I learned from the movie. Something I kind of talked about earlier, but so they built this world and they needed ways to sell the world. So I'm going to go with kind of a basic thing, but I'm going to explain it a little bit. I'm just going to say the lighting. And I'm going to explain what I mean, though. I think the diegetic, if you want to call it, motivated lighting in the movie is really good. I think the use of the lighting from like the neon, if you will, signs in the streets to through the windows of buildings, the sun, the traffic and cars going by. I call them cars. There are actually vehicles in the movie.
I think they're called spinners in the universe, but they're cars. They're just flying cars.
His apartment, it's just like a set, but you don't feel that way because of how busy it is outside, and I think the lighting does a really good job at that. And I could also argue for how the lighting makes it moody and everything too, but I just think that the color that they use, again, like just to reflect the world, I think it works really well.
I'm going to kind of do what I did before with Alien, but I just think it's worth talking about again. You talk about how much the lighting sells the world, and to me, I also just want to talk about how much the set design sells the world. And I did talk about this concept a lot with Alien, but it's very true with this, just how messy some parts of it look and how cluttered, but how much detail there is. Like, I think my favorite example of this is the piano in Rick's apartment. How there's like these old family photos and there's sheet music. There's like, there's glasses around dishes. The set itself feels like it's telling a story. They're giving you time to soak in the atmosphere of this world and the visuals. I also love J.F. Sebastian's apartment, how he's got the toys there and it's this old theater. And to me, there is just a lot of people have tried to replicate the look of this. It's spawned this genre of cyberpunk, but no one has been able to do it as well as Blade Runner. It is. I talk a lot about Alien being great, or rather, I did talk a lot about Alien set design being great, but I can't think of a sci-fi movie that has more amazing set and like prop design than Blade Runner. Even things like the Voight Kampf machine just looks so real. It doesn't look like bullshit someone made to look like a prop.
I wasn't super. If I'm gonna be honest, I wasn't really super impressed by the movie. I thought it was good. I didn't think it was horrible. I wasn't really ever bored. But aside from like the visuals, which I thought were really impressive, I didn't think it was anything special. Probably my least favorite of all the movies we watched so far, which disappoints you. But
so great. I'm gonna make you watch it again.
We're picking from a pool. I'm sure rewatching it's gonna help.
You kind of have to rewatch this movie to really get what it's about, in my opinion. Some people say, well, that doesn't make it a good movie. I don't know. People read books multiple times. You don't look at a painting once.
Right.
I don't think you need to watch a movie should be judged on if it's good by did you get it in one viewing.
Before we draw the episode in 2 weeks, we're taking another break. We're taking
a little short break because my schedule is stupid.
We are going to let Joey make fun of the movie with funny notes, and I think it's going to be a good one.
Take it away, Joey.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Today I'm going to indulge you with a few ha-ha lines of funny. So the simple title for this one is called Olympic Sword Throwing. U.S. Department of Education. Replicant evil. Text red. Of course, the Fire Pillars. I remember them from Los Angeles in 2019.
So how your fucking notes are gonna be?
Next one. Car emitting steam must be bad for the environment.
Yeah, there's a lot of steam.
Metallic Madness Zone Act 1. For all you video game fans out there, that is a reference to the game Sonic CD. Next one, shit and cum.
What the fuck are you talking about?
Bathtub looked like there was shit and cum in it. Alternate universe, Atari survives, Pog. Why did the damn Chinese take over America?
God, no, Joey!
Next one, Karen. In tandem with Karen, it is becomes Oscar the Grouch. Next one, holy shit, Raw is clean. Ryan go boing.
I'm not a tit guy.
Next one, I'm for the curls.
Look, all I'm saying is that scene she takes down the hair, it's like, oh. Fuck you. I get some.
Next fact is evil man be like, I give consent. Next one, smooch daddy before extraction.
Oh, right. Oh, right.
Pussy slayer. Next one, kissing my dead hot wife. Next one, white guy likes to live on the edge. Last one, white bird symbolism. Don't care. This has been the funny notes. Hopefully you've all had a little chuckle ha-ha.
Okay, it's time now to draw the movie, and God, weren't funny notes funny, as always.
The funniest.
Okay, I think there's been some kind of conspiracy. I had a lot of my movies in the beginning. Now it's all of a sudden 3 in a row for him. So I'm really going to separate these. I hope we get Metropolis.
I also hope we get Metropolis because I would love to talk about that movie
but there
right
is
after
no
Blade
conspiracy. I shuffle, he picks. Go for it. Oh, God.
Magnolia.
Ooh! Paul Thomas Anderson. I picked this one. I've never seen it. He hasn't either.
I have not either, and I know absolutely nothing about it.
I'm excited.
But I have the feeling it's going to be different than sort of like that sci-fi trend we were going for
for
a while.
Totally different. Well, in 2 weeks, we will watch Magnolia, and this goes in the trash. And that's all I got to say. Go watch Blade Runner if you want. I guess I'll have to watch it again to satisfy him.
You must watch it.
All right. See ya.
Bye.